For more than 250 years, no foreign army has successfully conquered the United States. The British attempted it and failed. Japan struck Hawaii and lost its empire. Every major power since has examined the map and reached the same conclusion. Invading the United States is not a conventional war plan. It is a strategic dead end. The question rarely asked is not whether it has happened before, but whether it could happen. If deterrence failed, alliances collapsed, and the United States had to endure an invasion alone, what would such a conflict actually look like in reality? History offers only a handful of partial precedents. In 1814, British forces burned Washington, D.C., briefly occupying the capital before withdrawing. In 1916, Pancho Villa's forces raided New Mexico and vanished back across the border. In 1942, Japan seized two remote Alaskan islands, only to lose nearly as many soldiers to terrain and weather as to American forces when the US retook them. Beyond these isolated incidents, no foreign military has ever held or penetrated the American mainland in force. The reason is not mythology or nationalism. It is geography. The United States is shielded by two vast oceans that function less like borders and more like natural fortifications. The Atlantic and Pacific are not merely distances to cross, they are dynamic, hostile environments. The Pacific alone spans roughly 5,000 miles, filled with storms, currents, and vast empty space. Even modern superpowers struggle to sustain operations across that distance. During World War II, when the United States attempted the reverse, projecting power across the Pacific, it required years of preparation, tens of thousands of ships, and enormous floating supply networks. That experience demonstrated just how punishing transoceanic warfare truly is. Modern militaries understand the logistics. A single carrier strike group consumes millions of gallons of fuel per week. Crossing an ocean requires prolonged exposure to satellites, submarines, and surveillance systems. Any invasion force would be detected long before reaching its destination. Assuming an enemy somehow overcame the oceans, the coastline itself presents the next obstacle. Much of the Pacific Northwest is defined by cliffs, dense forests, violent storms, and treacherous waters. The Olympic Peninsula rises sharply from the sea, offering few natural landing zones. Rainfall can exceed 12 feet annually, turning terrain into mud and machinery into liabilities. This coastline has long been known as the graveyard of the Pacific, where thousands of ships have wrecked. Even modern vessels require specialized pilots to navigate river bars and coastal passages. The environment alone eliminates the margin for error long before an invading force encounters defenders. Behind the coast lies another layer of resistance shaped by geography rather than strategy. Mountain ranges, dense forests, deserts, swamps, and extreme seasonal weather divide the continent into hostile regions. The Rockies fracture movement in the west. The Mississippi periodically floods its basin. The Appalachians form endless ridgelines that disrupt logistics. These features slow and fragment armies. Fuel consumption rises, supply lines stretch thin, and coordination collapses. Even under peacetime conditions, moving across the continent takes weeks. Under wartime pressure, sustained movement would be nearly impossible. Nature would not merely slow an invading force. It would starve it. Without secure ports, factories, or friendly infrastructure, every mile inland becomes another logistical crisis. Exposure on the Great Plains leaves units vulnerable to air and drone surveillance. Deserts destroy engines. Winters immobilize equipment. Then there is the population. The United States contains approximately 330 million people, with an estimated 390 million firearms in civilian hands. That translates to more weapons than people. Millions are trained hunters, veterans, and reserve personnel familiar with local terrain. This is not a centralized militia. It is a decentralized resistance network embedded across every state. Even if conventional forces were pushed back, the population would not disengage. The scale of armed resistance would dwarf historical insurgencies. Afghanistan strained global powers with a fraction of that number. A conflict inside the United States would become the largest guerrilla war in human history. Secrecy, a requirement for invasion, no longer exists. Modern surveillance tracks ships, aircraft, heat signatures, and electronic emissions across the globe. Satellites identify movements weeks in advance. Drones loiter for days. Radar networks blanket ocean approaches. A fleet assembling for an invasion would appear as a detectable trail long before departure. It would face submarines, bombers, and carrier groups far from American shores. There is no realistic way to move such forces undetected. As a result, modern adversaries focus on alternatives. Rather than crossing oceans, they attempt to weaken the United States internally. Cyber operations target power grids, financial systems, GPS networks, and communications. Disinformation campaigns aim to fracture public trust, amplify divisions, and destabilize institutions. This approach reflects strategic reality. Undermining a society from within is easier than invading it from without. The final options, biological weapons, mass destruction, nuclear strikes, do not offer conquest. They guarantee annihilation. Any attack on the US mainland invites immediate retaliation. Mutual destruction is not victory. This is why threats remain rhetorical. Military parades, missile tests, and strategic posturing substitute for action. Nations understand what lies beyond those oceans: a technologically dominant military, a hostile geography, and an armed population. The United States maintains 11 aircraft carriers, more than the rest of the world combined. Its air power can reach any point on Earth within hours. Every state operates National Guard units familiar with local infrastructure. Reinforcements would arrive from global bases within days. Even a successful landing would not translate into control. Ports might fall temporarily. Cities might suffer damage. But occupation of the continent would remain unattainable. History suggests a different vulnerability. External conquest has never been America's downfall. Internal fracture remains the only plausible threat. Political division, social fragmentation, and institutional decay pose risks no foreign army can replicate. A foreign invasion of the United States is theoretically imaginable but practically catastrophic for the attacker. Geography, population, technology, and logistics converge to make success unattainable. The only force capable of undoing the United States has always been internal. If collapse ever occurs, it will not arrive by fleet or parachute, but through instability that originates at home.